Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. This is Yerd Yao checking in. Let's get it. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. All right. Shalom, shalom, everybody. This is Hebrew News. Hope everybody is doing okay. All right, we are here, and today the top headline, of course, from over the weekend is that the Pope passed away, you guys. The Pope passed away yesterday, the day after Easter Sunday. And so everybody is, kind of freaking out, going crazy. Oh, see, these things are ramping up. Something's going to happen. There was even rumors that the vice president had a hand in his assassination, that he slipped him some poison through his hand. We don't know anything about any of that, but we do know that they are shaking things up in world politics. Now, are they responsible every time someone dies? No, I don't think so. But I will say this. The things that are happening now can be foreshadows for what is coming in the future, or clues, hints to tell us that there is some troubling times coming. So the very first thing about this death is that he died supposedly the day after Easter Sunday. And so we of course know that there is no significance to the holiday of Easter, but we also know that this is not just the time of Easter, that in reality it's the time of the Passover. And as the week progressed, we recognize that the last day of unleavened bread, which is connected to Passover, we celebrated on Saturday, on this past Sabbath day. We celebrated the last day of unleavened bread. Some people celebrated that last day on that next day, which would have been Easter Sunday. And I'm sure in varying degrees in either direction. But what we're looking at, you guys, is I would say a signaling to these, false holidays, this particular false holiday. And we recognize also that in our holiday system, that ours is the true holiday system and that theirs is the false. So the one that we grew up with, the one, Easter, Christmas and all that, that's the false system. And of course we operate in the true system. But that doesn't mean that the adversary wouldn't operate in both. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be surprising for him to have, orchestrated some sort of ritual in the death of the Pope on this day or around this day. We're not saying that that's the case. He definitely could have died from natural causes, but we know that it is not like them for any of their people to just slip silently away, as there is usually some intrigue and espionage into these high-profile deaths. So with it being on or around their holiday season, it does kind of spark a little bit of attention going in that direction. And now there are all sorts of theories that are going around about what's happening. In fact, people are saying that he didn't have to have passed away this past weekend. They had been reporting that he was in and out of the hospital, or actually in the hospital, since January or February. And so we know that he was, kind of having it hard then. And so does that mean he died then, and then they waited until this time period to announce, his death? Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that that's the case. Just because I know that they want to politicize this event. And I say event, it's not an event, it's a death. They want to politicize this death as much as they possibly can. So that seems like the way that it would need to be done if that's what you were trying to do. If they're trying to signal something and show something with this death, and they couldn't control it. It happened naturally on its own at some other time. They can fake it too. I don't think that that's beyond them to do. And when I say them, I mean the cult that controls the world right now. You guys recognize that we live in a world that is run by occultists, that they, at the very top echelons of society, are controlling the things that you see on TV, controlling the things that you see on the internet. They're controlling the things that are on the newspaper. They're controlling all of the wars and, playing countries against one another. And each country has its representative. And all of these countries, most of these countries, are led by descendants of Magog, you guys. This is the real world. This is the waking up from the surreal world and entering into the real world, which seems surreal. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in that system, you have specific representatives for these, mainstream belief systems that all fall under the umbrella of this occult leadership. And one of them, of course, is Catholicism. Of course, is Catholicism. We know that even, obedient Catholic observers are going to be in sin because they'll be doing penitence and, praying to to Mary, praying to the Archangel Michael, praying to these different angels, and, also trying to pray to God or in their, form of God. Do you see what I'm saying? They know that they've created images to replace the actual figures, and that those images are in the likeness of themselves. And they can only do that if they are demonically inspired to do that. And these are the things that are on the open, like on the surface. If you go to a Catholic mass, you'll find that. You'll find them, worshiping idols. You'll see idols in the church. You'll see in the cathedral or wherever you're at. You'll see stone statues of Messiah, stone statues of Gabriel, stone statues of Michael, stone statues of Mary. They'll put it out themselves. They'll make their own images and put it in their front yard. They'll make the plastic, light up versions of their Magog style Messiah, and they'll put them right there in their front yard. So we understand that even the low-level Catholic worshiper is worshiping in a state of disobedience. But the high-level Catholics, the ones who would instill, these, or I say instill, I guess by this time it's been around for 2,000 years nearly. So to corroborate every generation and instill these practices in people, the leadership is under a whole other, even more unrighteous flag, even more satanic understanding, because we know that the heads of all of these Catholic churches have been involved in child abuse scandals going back as long as there's been a Catholic church, going all the way back to actual ancient Rome, where that was something that was common. You guys, the Romans and the Greeks would take on, you wouldn't call them disciples, you would call them, I think, adepts, where they're kids and they go and study under a specific teacher. And I mean, they're kids, they're not teenagers, they're kids, but they go and study under a specific teacher, and that teacher, the relationship is a sexual one. It's not just an educational relationship, it's also sexual, right? And this is not open, but it's understood in Greco-Roman culture. If you were a student of this particular teacher, you knew automatically that it was not just the student-teacher relationship, it was also some sort of sexual relationship. And so this is something that they have always done for a very long time. And now we know that the Romans and the Magogites or different people groups, but the Magogites, picking up these customs from the Romans, continued in that debauchery and actually incorporated it into the system of Roman Catholicism. This is why you get so many, sexually abused children out of that system, because it is literally a part of the system. It's a secret part, but it's built in. They have built in regulations and rules that are secret that deal with the systematic abuse of children. That's what the Catholic Church does. I mean, it's just so rampant and widespread and pervasive in that community that it can't be, this bishop here, this cardinal here. It is actually a well orchestrated, organized system of abuse. And it's not just abuse either. Abuse is bad enough. It's not just abuse, it's also ritual, murder, and sacrifice. And this is what people will not recognize about these long-standing institutions, that because they're these long-standing institutions, it means that, let's see if we are, we're still on here. It means that because they are successful in this society, they have to basically sell out their souls at a very, very early point in time. And since they've done that, they have to continue that legacy of abuse on down the line. That it comes from ancient practices all the way up into the current day. And you have tiers, you have levels of the society where some people know and some people don't. And I'll tell you, all the people that are in the Catholic Church, they all know. It's just us on the outside that think it's one church here or one church there or one cardinal or one bishop, but that is actually pervasive and is a part of Roman Catholic culture. And there's just really no way around that. And I guess I wasn't talking about the sexual abuse here. I'm actually talking about now the ritual abuse, which is the next level up. The sexual abuse exists to identify the ritual abusers and sacrifice them. This is the way that it works, you guys. It doesn't work any other kind of way. The rumors that you hear about the Catholic Church are just the tip of the iceberg. It goes very, very deep into satanic practice at its highest levels. This is why the Nazis were aligned with the Catholic Church in World War II. They weren't publicly aligned. They were privately in deals and partnerships. This is why the Catholic Church has a secret underground army of, deep occultists called the Jesuits that are so ingrained in in Europe's educational system that they have been able to steer the thought process of society into subversion, all the way going back hundreds of years now since their invention in the 1500s. This group of Jesuits takes a blood oath to be slaughtered in some sort of, just brutal way if they give any of the secrets of the order. Do you understand what I mean? This is the history, this is the past of the Catholic Church, and also its secret present, and then also a representative of its future as well, because the Catholic Church being in Rome and the picture of past Rome, past Roman greatness, do you see what I'm saying? Past wealthy Rome is directly prophetic and directly goes to the book of Daniel, of course. Goes to the book of Daniel, chapter 2, where the feet and toes of iron and miry clay would have the strength of iron, like the kingdom previous to it, but wouldn't cleave to one another. Do you understand what that means? That means that it would have this last feet and toes kingdom we know from Daniel chapter 2. Let's go there real quick. Daniel chapter 2, you guys. And on this death, there's not going to be any fanciness on this particular death. I'm sure there are some number strategies that align here. But I think that that's more coordinated and strategy on the part of the quote unquote elites. And I don't think that they would necessarily apply here. I think this pope was killed or died a few months ago. But let's go ahead and go to the interpretation of the dream. Or let's just see what the dream was first. Okay. Let's go to verse 31. This is the interpretation of the verse, the dream here. It's the dream. He's actually telling him. Let's start at verse 31. It says, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was terrible, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part clay." And so do you see that this is the image of a great statue whose head was gold, whose breast and arms were silver, whose belly and thighs were brass, his legs were iron, and his feet were iron and clay. And so we have an understanding that these kingdoms are the kingdoms of the world, starting from Nebuchadnezzar, that Elohim gave him a dream about the things that would come to pass. So if we skip back up into verse 29, I guess I should have read here, it says, but there is, let's go to verse 28. It says, "But there is an Elohim in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days." Do you see? Let's just read A of this verse. It says, "What shall be in the latter days." So Nebuchadnezzar actually became like unto one of the prophets, you guys. And so this dream right here is the culmination of the entire rest of time before the kingdom comes. Do you understand that that is an incredible dream to give to a Babylonian king? That literally Elohim is saying to this man that I'm going to let you see the future. He's doing it in a symbolic way, of course, but he's saying to this king, if you can understand this dream, then you will know what's going to happen for the next, let's just say 2,500 years, all the way up until right now, you guys. He gave King Nebuchadnezzar, arguably the wickedest man on earth at that time, the destroyer of the temple of Elohim, a dream about the rest of the eras of time until the end of the world. This is an incredible thing, but let's not get too far off track here. This legs of iron, so let's just go back and take a look here. We interpret this going to verse 38, or let's just do 36. It says, "This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king." It says, "Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the Elohim of heaven have given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thy hand, and hath he made ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold." So this is where we know right here that Babylon is the head of gold. And then we can see he goes beyond the head all the way down to the very last kingdom right here. And he makes sure to specify that in that last kingdom, that will be the kingdom that Elohim returns and establishes a righteous kingdom from the remnants, from the destruction, out of the destruction of that last kingdom. And so if we track down through history, the kingdoms that came on the earth, really quick here, and you guys know this for a fact already, it says that the head was of fine gold, that's Babylon. The breast and arms of silver. The next after Babylon is what? Is Persia. And notice also that they are deteriorating in value. A lot of people say that silver is worth more than gold. But here in this example, we have also a deterioration of value as far as the kingdoms are concerned. And we know that Persia... Now, you see me doing this video, boy. Uh-huh. It says here, we know that this is a... I'm sorry. We know that this is a deterioration of kingdom because we know that the king, at his word, would be able to have anything happen that he wanted. You know, not the law, the king's word. Once you go down to the secondary kingdom, the Silver Kingdom, the kingdom of Medo-Persia, we know that the king had to give an order and that he could not rescind from his own order. Once it's written down, his order could not be overturned. That was not a power that the king of Persia had. And what this literally represents is a downgrade of power. That after this particular kingdom left, the power of its king waned. So the Babylonian king was more powerful in Babylon than the Persian king was powerful in Persia, even though the Persian kings defeated the Babylonians in battle. And so we see the deterioration of kingdom as we continue to go down. The belly and thighs of brass, we see that as the very next kingdom being the Greeks, right? The Greeks are the next kingdom that come down the line. And we know that they're the Greeks. Daniel goes on to talk about the Greeks in another chapter, chapter 7, chapter 8? Chapter 7. It says, his legs of iron, chapter 7 and chapter 8, I think. It says, his legs of iron, and so these legs of iron are the next kingdom to come after the Greeks. The Greeks were bad, right? The Greeks were a strong kingdom, but this particular kingdom is really strong. It's made out of iron. And you can see the usage of all of these different elements, that they all have strength. They all have their own individual attributes, and these attributes are reminiscent of the thing that they're describing. And so this iron is not as precious and as valuable as the gold, but it's very hard and it's very stern. And this is what we see also in the character of the Roman Empire. So here he's mentioning the Roman Empire right here as these legs of iron. And so I say, listen to me, you guys. I say all of that breakdown to say this, that in the kingdom to come after the Romans, it was the kingdom of iron and clay, you guys. So iron and mirror clay. Are y'all ready to go?
Oh no, the voice of musician wasn't.
Okay, give me 1 second, you guys. We're gonna go on a show break really quick. And we are back. I apologize about that, you guys. So I say all of that build up to explain this final point here about this prophecy. So the iron, okay, so his legs of iron and his feet, part of iron and part of clay. So this literally means that the Roman Empire will still be something in the next age and era after its destruction. Do you understand? It will look like iron, but it will be part iron and part clay, you guys. And so that's a very interesting analogy to describe the final kingdom on earth as having the strength of the iron, but being kind of disjointed, like almost as if it was iron and clay mixed together. So let's just take a look. It says, let's jump down to verse 39. It says, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And this is, again, the Bible prophecy just coming to play before our eyes. And we'll give you another quick secondary proof that this is really, really accurate prophecy here. It says, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall break it in pieces and bruise. So he's saying that iron is stronger than brass, stronger than silver, and stronger than gold, but not as valuable as any of those things. Can break it, but cannot be rated more value than the ones that it could break. And so we see this in the Roman Empire. Less value, of less power as far as their rulers, but of great wrath, if you would say that word, of great, I guess it would be cruelty and fierceness of judgment. Do you understand what I mean? And that's, not across the board, because we know that they tolerated lots of religions at one point, but just, unbreakable. The Romans were almost like the Nazis were in their, mindset about their own nation, that they believed themselves to be an iron people, that they were not to be stopped. They were not the smartest, they were not the most numerous, but they were the most, I guess you would say, what's the word for, they were the most tenacious. The word for never give up. If there's a stronger word for tenacious, then that would be it. They were the ones that would never, ever, ever give up. And so this is the strength of the iron that it's talking about right here. And so after that kingdom, there's going to be another kingdom that will arise and look like it. So it says, and whereas thou sawest, and we're at verse 41 here, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. Do you see what I'm saying? So it doesn't have the iron itself. It has the strength of the iron. It has the appearance. It is strong, it's stubborn, like the Romans, you guys. And this is where we have the appearance of the Roman Catholic Church. Because you guys, this feet and toes kingdom right here is not the Romans. They are the Magogites. These are the people that are this mixed group of people that come from the Eurasian steppe. We talk about this so much on this channel, being able to identify which of these nations it is that are controlling the earth right now. Those Magogites pretended to be Romans after they conquered the Roman Empire, even started speaking Latin and taking on Roman names and continuing Roman culture in the places where they were. Do you understand, you guys? And they not only took on the name Romans, but they behaved and called themselves the Romans too. But they acted like barbarians. And these Magogites, of course, are associated with barbarians like the Visigoths, the Goths, the Huns, the Alans, the Anglo-Saxons, all of these different tribes of Magogites that come from the Eurasian steppe, known as barbarians around the world, but began to become cultured and civilized once they gained a hold of this information from Rome. Where did Rome get it from? They got it from us. You know, we messed up on our job, and our inheritance was turned over to all sorts of other different people. And this particular group of people, these Magogites that got a hold to our information after the Romans, continued it on and used the strength therein to develop a religion that became so powerful that it was almost singularly responsible for controlling the world. We're talking about Catholicism, Christianity. And we know from that Christianity, from that Catholicism, that all the other religions of the world, the main religions, emerged from, you guys. We're talking about Protestantism, we're talking about Eastern Orthodox, and we're also talking about, you guys, Islam. Islam is a radical denomination of Catholicism, which is in itself a radical denomination of Nazarianism. Islam, which wouldn't fall under the umbrella of Christianity, is a Christian sect. So this is why you'll see the Pope, the Jewish, rabbis, and the imams, in agreement with one another, in correspondence with one another, and their representatives, I guess you could say, giving the blessings of one another. You'll see, rabbis, you'll see imams kissing the ring of the Pope. Why? Because it's one of the oldest, ancient, organized witchcraft societies, and probably the most populated too. They're one of the oldest and most ancient witchcraft societies on earth, and they're definitely the most successful, you guys. And this is why it makes sense to pay attention to what's going on to the Pope, because these popes have controlled world history and the organization thereof for all the way up since there's been such a thing as a pope. And now they claim ancestry all the way going back to the first Pope Peter, but of course this cannot be the case, because we know that the traditions and the commandments that are found therein are not according to the commandments of the Bible. In fact, we know that there are curses at the early Christian church, which would be proto-Catholicism in Rome, that there are curses that the church put on anybody who tried to keep the Sabbath, anybody who tried to keep the feast days like Passover, like unleavened bread, put curses on them. And that if they did them, a lot of times they would enact the curses themselves. Do you see what I'm saying? You couldn't, believe in Messiah and keep the commandments, because they were destined to persecute you for that. And the king of this persecution was the Pope. And the Pope has carried this understanding with him all the way down to the present day of who the Israelites are, where the Israelites are, what should be done to the Israelites, and then how to profit off of their slavery. You have to understand that the information of the Bible is worth untold amounts of money, because if you can, wrangle hold of any sort of inheritance from biblical culture, automatically you have the prophetic keys to the kingdom, if I can be so blunt. The prophetic keys of the kingdom aren't the actual keys. If you have the prophetic keys, you know who the keys belong to, and then will be able to pretend as if you have the keys. And this is what the Catholic Church has done. This is what all the popes are responsible for upholding. That system, that ancient system that is dedicated, literally dedicated, to the eradication, enslavement, and manipulation and profiting off of the backs of actual Hebrews, you guys. That's what the Catholic Church is. It's a religion that is created in order to have a replacement religion for true religion, you guys. Catholicism, that word Catholic, is a Latin word that means universal. So this was created, Catholicism was created to be the universal religion. That's why it contains elements of Judaism. That's why it contains elements of quote unquote Christianity, which is actually not Ceremism. That's why it contains elements of pagan worship and of idol worship, because it was designed to be able to be applicable to everybody. That it was the universal religion of Rome, who were universally the leaders of society. And the Magogites took that idea over, continued it, and then here we have now in the present day a position called Vicar of Christ, which means replacement of Christ. So that means that you now have, literally on the face of the planet right now, a position called anti-Messiah. And whoever is sitting in that seat, sitting in the Pope's chair, sitting in that position, is literally taking on himself the position of anti-Messiah. Literally, that the anti-Messiah is the Pope. The name Pope actually means father, because it's like Papa, right? And so this is literally where you're literally, when you call him Pope, and I guess I shouldn't be doing that then, you're literally calling him Father in ancient Latin, or in the Latin understanding. We know that this is where this term comes from. And so this is the witchcraft that is intrinsically associated with a pope, you guys. And so this is how we understand what it is that we're looking at and what is getting ready to happen next. So whoever this next quote unquote pope, this vicar of Christ, whoever this next person is going to be right along with the mix, is going to be right there. You're not going to have one unrighteous pope and one righteous pope, because the actual seat itself is going to be filled by the top anti-Messiah in the church. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not going to have a chief chef not be a chef. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not going to pull somebody off of the street and say, hey, I'm a lawyer, and then make them a chief chef. You're not going to have the deputy, the chief of police is going to be a policeman. He's going to be the top. He's going to be the top cop, right? So you can't get somebody in there that is not part of the anti-messianic community in that leadership position. It just doesn't happen that way. We know the same thing about presidents, that the role of president is also an anti-messianic position. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that means everybody that assumes a role as president is an anti-Messiah, you guys. And that's why they'll all show these different signs. That's why people was like, oh, well, Ronald Reagan, if you guys remember that far ago, I think that there was the propaganda behind the assassination of Ronald Reagan was that he was the anti-Messiah or something like that. But that these rumors were around Ronald Reagan of him being some sort of anti-Messiah. Well, he is, because he was in the position of anti-Messiah. George Bush after him, anti-Messiah, Illuminati, CIA. Yes, all of the above, because he's in the position of anti-Messiah. Clinton after him, all sorts of numerology and terminology and symbols and signs. Oh, he's the anti-Messiah. Yes, he is, because he's in the position. He's risen up the political ranks to achieve the rank of anti-Messiah. And then after him, second Bush, same thing. They said the same things about him. After him, Obama clearly said the same things about him. After him, who was it? Trump after Obama? Clearly saying the same things about him. We're saying those things down. Same thing for Biden, that all of these people have displayed characteristics and signs and symbols of anti-messianic understanding and anti-messianic sentiment, you guys. And so this is what we're also seeing now in Trump and in the world leaders that have risen to these ranks And then also in the Pope, you guys, also in the Vatican and the imams and all of these other different places, but specifically and almost in name, the Pope, you guys. And I don't even have another name to call him besides Pope, even though I would like to stop calling him that. You see what we're saying here? So if we understand this to be the case, when we see something like this happen, we won't be looking for necessarily anybody new to come in and change anything up. What we should expect to happen is that we'll get another person very similar to the person that we had before and installing and completing a whole heap of new and more radical changes in their church. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is what we should be looking for coming up. A changing of the guard, but not a changing for the better. More than likely a changing for a more radical version of the person that was there before, you guys. And so that's what we should be looking for. I don't put any prophetic significance to this as an event that will be different from any other pope coming or going. I do think that we're in prophetic times, so this next pope will be able to wield more power and will be able to be more anti-messianic than the popes of the past. I think that this will be the strongest one, but again, I do also think that this is par for the course, that you'll see these things happening, and you may see it happen in many different forms, but every person that they're putting in front of you, no matter what they say or what they do, every person that you're seeing on TV is going to be a part of this system. And so we've got to watch very carefully, because they will be trying to introduce that anti-Messiah that people will love into the situation, you guys. We don't know if it's coming from Catholicism, which is a part of Gog Magog. We don't know if it's coming from Ashkenazi Israel, which we know is also a part of Gog Magog. We don't know if it's coming from America, like Trump or one of his kids, which we also know to be Gog and Magog. We don't know if it's coming from China, which we know the government system itself, the government as the anti-Messiah, literally the government of the anti-Messiah, the secular government that removes any understanding of religion whatsoever. We don't know if that's not being called to be the anti-Messiah, that they're being used and strengthened in the last days to eradicate the religious aspect of the world. This is also something that I believe is coming. But again, we don't know where the anti-Messiah is going to come from. We don't know if it's going to come from the UK, which is, had a new king last year, looking to implement a new younger king here in the next, because we don't know what's going to happen with this, king that we have now that's not making many waves at all, right? We haven't heard much about this king from Europe, from the UK, and usually we hear a lot. For the Queen, we heard almost every time she was doing anything. Nothing from the king right now. So we don't know what's coming from that aspect either. So from them, they've been, had satanic symbolism all around them for as long as we've been able to see who they really are. So all of these kingdoms, China, UK, Russia, United States, all Vatican, Israel, Ashkenazi Israel, all of these different places have the ability to raise up unto themselves an anti-Messiah and put all the symbology in place and, allow it to look like, this is going to be the one. Is this one going to be the one? They all have the ability to do that because they are a part of this partly strong, partly broken kingdom, last kingdom on the earth of Gog and Magog. And if you understand Gog and Magog tribes going all the way back to the Eurasian steppe, this is what they've always done and how they've always looked, you guys. That is all that I have on the Pope and on these events in world prophecy right now. I do want you guys to stay tuned because there is a lot of stuff going on, and I'm having a hard time keeping up and catching up to the events that are happening every day. But we will try to make sense of the things that we see in front of us, try to report to the best of our ability. You guys, this has been Hebrew News. Stay vigilant.